17,000 United Nations blue berets were incapable of stopping what barely 100 did in Sierra Leone, 100 executive outcomes.
Forces model of rapid deployment, long-range reconnaissance, air-land assaults, and strategic targeting. EO has the RUF on the run in late June of 1995 and is nearing the rebel-held Kono diamond fields.
On a Sunday, sometime in 1996, we heard the sound of an assault on a village near Kono. We drove along the main road leading out of Kono towards this village. We met refugees fleeing, wounded some of them, and the information we got was that the village was attacked by a band of 10 to 15 RUF rebels. We got to the first village and we found that the village had been massacred. Some of the women were executed by having their throats slashed. The women were raped and they had sticks inserted in their vaginas.
Start to fire the men then. More than 30 men, all of them, they kill them. They come to with the women. They start to chop our hands and our legs. They chop all my leg. Say, where is my leg?
That shocked us. And unanimously, without even speaking about it, we decided to avenge this village.
By nightfall, they find their target.
We caught up with these rebels, sitting in a village, having rice cooked for them. And they'd already tied up most of the inhabitants of this little village, and they were going to have their fun with them afterwards. So we surprised the hell out of them.
We made sure that these horror stories and the chopping off of the hands, the killing of innocent women and children, and the recruiting of 12-year-olds and putting them on drugs, all of that stopped. And that progressed so quickly in Sierra Leone that the population actually supported us wherever we went and whatever we did.
News of EO's actions spreads, and the besieged locals emerge to show their gratitude.
They were lined along the roads and they were screaming and yelling and shouting and touching us, and the gratitude and the goodwill was overwhelming. It made me realize that this is what we can do. Nobody in this whole world could have gone there and saved those villages. They would be dead if we hadn't been there.
I grew up in the era of winning hearts and minds. And the people that I associated with in our military were old Special Forces soldiers who had learned that skill. And so the hearts and minds and winning the confidence of the people of Sierra Leone is a very important part of our mission.
In less than 2 months, by late June of 1995, executive outcomes has sent the RUF rebels reeling. But the soldiers are totally unaware that their victory sent shockwaves through the world community. EO has demonstrated a stunning military capability, but their controversial status as mercenaries will soon bring the weight of the world down upon them.
I do not think that the world is ready to accept that PMC could achieve these results. The problem with executive outcomes was, I would say, marketing in the first place. We did not consider the consequences of the bad publicity that executive outcomes would get. I think probably journalism highlighted the sensational instead of concentrating on precisely what executive outcomes wanted to achieve. And because they highlighted the sensational, I think a lot of decisions was made on the basis of the mercenary factor.
EO's days are numbered.
The irony faced by executive outcomes was that once they had stabilized the situation in both Angola and Sierra Leone, they came under enormous pressure from the United Nations and from the American administration at the time, the Clinton administration, to withdraw. In fact, their clients, the Angolan government and then the Sierra Leone government, were pressured to cancel their contracts. In both cases, executive outcomes explained that with their withdrawal, the conflicts would reignite, which in fact did happen.
On November 30th, 1996, the government of Sierra Leone and the RUF sign a peace accord. The terms of the agreement calls for the demobilization of RUF fighters and the removal of foreign forces, including the South African mercenary force, Executive Outcomes. By December 1996, the new President Kaba terminates EO's contract early, and EO leaves Sierra Leone on February 3rd, 1997.
What really saddened me in Sierra Leone, to this day I do think about it, is that we told the president when he told us that we had to leave, we told him that the RUF will take over the government, or will try and take over Freetown again. And we knew precisely what was going to happen. And because of the influence on him, you know, I would say close to intimidation on him, he had to let us go.
EO and is replaced by a UN peacekeeping force.
It is UN policy to discourage mercenaries. We do not think that this is an appropriate form of armed intervention anywhere, involving any group. And if there is to be a peacekeeping operation or a peace enforcement operation, it should be duly authorized by the international community and the regional bodies that have that responsibility. And that was the case here in Sierra Leone with the establishment of the United Nations peacekeeping mission. That is the job of the international community.
In Sierra Leone, the mandated force, the United Nations force, reached, I believe, 17,000. That did not prevent the Revolutionary United Front from starting again. 17,000 United Nations blue berets were incapable of stopping what barely 100 did in Sierra Leone, 100 Executive Outcomes employees.
Within 100 days of EO's departure, rebel forces restart their operations. They kidnap 500 UN peacekeepers and invade the capital. The reign of terror begins once again.
And that resulted in thousands of people being killed, tens of thousands of people being maimed, which shouldn't have happened. You know, if we had left 60 people over there, that would never have happened.
Executive Outcomes' unprecedented activity would leave a lasting impression on Africa and the entire international community.
Executive Outcomes was the first private military company of the modern era. In Sierra Leone, Executive Outcomes deployed for 22 months between 1995 and 1997. Over that time frame, the cost averaged exactly $20 million a year. The subsequent peacekeeping force, not peace enforcement, not people in the front line, peacekeeping force deployed by the United Nations numbered to its peak about 18,000 personnel at a cost of about $1 billion a year. But by now there was so much skepticism and so much concern about the private sector having this ability to act operationally